Hi, I'm Laura Dawn, and this is MoveOn.org's 5 by 5, 5 questions from our 5 million members. Today, we're talking with economist Robert Reich. Thank you so much for being with us today, Robert. The first question is, what does the American dream mean to you personally?
Well, there's an issue about power. When I was a kid, I've always been very short. And so when I was a kid, I was bullied a great deal. And the only way to keep the bullies at bay, to stop the bullying, basically to preserve my sense of being safe, was to make alliances with other people and boys who were bigger than I was, who actually were willing to kind of protect me. I created the first protection racket. One of those boys, who was older, named Mickey, we stayed friends for years, and then in the summer of 1964, Mickey was a freedom rider. His name was Michael Schwerner, and he was brutally murdered by the sheriff of Neshoba County and others because he was trying to register blacks to vote. He, along with a black man, a young man, and another white, the bullies, in other words, got to the person who was protecting me from my little bullies. And I think that for me, was a turning point. I decided that I was not going to sit back and allow people to be bullied, people who are powerless, people who don't have a voice, people who are susceptible to now the economic bullies in America. And so, look, you can psychoanalyze yourself and everybody to death, but it seems to me that was my wake-up call.
So specifically, how do you think that the American dream has gotten off track for us?
There is no longer, for most Americans, an American dream. That dream used to be a dream of upward mobility, a dream that anybody could make it with enough guts and gumption and working hard, playing by the rules. Today, a lot of people, particularly given the Great Recession, have concluded that they can't make it. They owe more on their homes than their homes are worth. Their kids can't be in a decent school, no matter what they do. They can't make ends meet. They can't pay their bills. They're afraid of losing their jobs if they haven't lost their jobs already. It looks like the dice are loaded in favor of the big guys on Wall Street, corporate CEOs who are now taking home 300 times what an average working person is taking home. Many of those same CEOs are firing people because they've got to show that the bottom line, their profitability, is better and better and better. And so we've got to the point where the ratio between corporate profits and wages is the highest it's been since before the Great Depression. Now, what can you do about this? Well, I teach public policy. I can give you a list of policies. I can tell you exactly what we do about it in terms of tax policy. I can tell you what we need to do about it in terms of investments in education and infrastructure. But fundamentally, this is not about policy. It's about politics. Because you can come up with the most impressive list of policies in the world, and it means nothing unless good people in America are organized and mobilized and energized to demand that these things get done. And that's the problem. The political power is at the top. The political power is with the special interests. And people have got to say to themselves that for my sake, but also for the sake of my children and their children and their children, I've got to take back the American dream. I've got to make sure that this country works for everybody, not just for the people at the top.
So the next question is, does raising taxes on corporations and the wealthiest among us actually impede job growth or even kill job growth, as so many conservatives assert?
The lie, and it is a lie, that if you ask corporations or ask the rich to pay their fair share, that's going to kill job growth, is one of the most vicious lies perpetrated by the right. First of all, big corporations are now sitting on $2 trillion of cash. They don't even know what to do with it. The ratio of corporate profits to wages is the highest it's been since before the Great Depression. Companies don't need more money. The reason they're not investing in job growth is because they don't have consumers, they don't have customers. Americans are not buying because Americans are under a huge debt load. They're losing their jobs. They're losing their homes. They are seeing their wages disappear. Nobody is going to buy in these circumstances. That's what the big corporations, that's what the rich are not talking about and don't want us to talk about.
We have a lot of questions from our members about the Supercommittee. A lot of concerns about the Supercommittee being sort of an anti-democratic process because there's really no way for the public to weigh in. So the question is, what would be your message to the Supercommittee as they're deliberating their task?
My message for the Supercommittee is very simple. Jobs. It's a jobs crisis. We are not in a debt crisis. The debt crisis is manufactured. And by the way, if we don't get jobs back and growth back and wages back, that debt crisis years from now is going to be much worse. Because the issue is not just the debt, the issue is the ratio of the debt to the size of the national economy. And if we don't get growth and jobs back, that ratio gets worse and worse and worse. So the number one responsibility is getting jobs back.
This question comes from a member who's concerned about Citizens United. Are corporations people?
Corporations are not people. They are legal fictions. Corporations don't cry. They don't laugh. They don't get anxious. I'll believe corporations are people when Texas and Georgia execute the next corporation. And even then, I may not believe their jury findings. Look, this legal fiction that corporations are people is one of the most insidious that they, on the radical right, are promoting. And the Supreme Court has bought it. 5 members of the Supreme Court. By the way, Citizens United, that terrible case that makes corporations people and gives them First Amendment rights, is the best argument I know for replacing the next conservative justice who leaves or dies or otherwise decides to retire with somebody who is absolutely committed to reversing that outrageous decision.
Thank you so much for being with us here today, Bob. I'm Laura Don, and I want to thank you for watching this edition of 5 by 5.